Nick Griffin from MUNRO Partners. Welcome to the Growth Symposium.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
You've got a track record of being able to identify some of the biggest global tech themes before others. What is your edge in that department?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, look, from our point of view, we run absolute return funds, and we've been running global growth funds from Australia for 15 years across two firms. And so right from the start, we sort of worked out that our edge wouldn't be in being over or underweight retail in certain countries, or trying to work out what was going to happen to GDP or interest rates, etc. So what we did is we tried to identify big structural themes and who was going to benefit from that. That's basically been our modus operandi since day one. And so the key point is we're looking for them. We're not trying to go over or underweight any sector. We're literally trying to find what's a big structural change and who are the big winners. And so if you think about the world that way, you're more likely to find them before everyone else.
And there's a lot of tech themes that have burst into an investor's attention quite quickly, AI being the latest with ChatGPT. What's the risk that valuation catches up too quickly, or what's the opportunity set for this?
Yeah, so maybe if you put a bit of perspective here, if you go back in time, a lot of those big structural changes were tech ideas, right? Why was that happening? Because semiconductors were getting faster. We've talked about this a lot. You know, Moore's law gets faster, and technology was able to disrupt more and more things as we went along. And so the first that most would remember would be like the iPhone moment, when the iPhone came along, created Apple, and then you could send pictures on that phone and that creates Facebook, and then you could watch videos on that phone and that creates Netflix, and then you can do video conferencing, which helps software, and software goes to the cloud. And all these things happened because semiconductors got faster and technology got better. And all of them ended up being great investment opportunities, quite frankly. AI is just the next step in this. So AI is we can now get computers to create generative outcomes. They've actually been doing this for a while, you know, in like predictive ads or predictive what you want to watch on Netflix. But now these large language models are sort of like this, wow, this is a really handy product. And so yes, the valuations are high, but if you go back through all the previous ones, they all did create these huge winners, and we do think this one will be exactly the same.
And how do you tell the difference between the next winners versus potential fads or the losers?
It's a great question. And I think the simple way to think about this is actually how do you use it, right? So everyone remembers the moment they sat next to someone who had an iPhone and they didn't, and they went, I want one of those. That's really handy. It was, and to be fair, the internet had been on the phone for 3 years before that. It's just Apple found a way to make the product work, if that makes sense. This is the same. AI has been around for 3 or 4 years, but we now have a product that actually makes it useful, which is generative AI. And what's that going to create? It creates things like ChatGPT, which everyone's probably had a go of, but it's now going to create, you know, things like Copilot on Microsoft or different ways you can do a search query. And it's that usefulness that means you know it's going to be big. Converse that with, say, the metaverse, which was something that we're all talking about last year. No one in the last 12 months has gone and bought a set of goggles or gone to a meeting where everyone was in the metaverse. So you're not using it in the same way that you're going to use AI. And I'd think about that iPhone moment as the way to think about it.
And the tech and growth sector has had a bit of a shakeout with rising bond yields. Are you seeing more opportunities than ever in 2023?
Yeah, so importantly, you know, obviously, you know, along the way, macro forces do get in the way. Interest rates went from 0 to 5%. Valuations were already very high. They're now much lower. But the structural changes in the background haven't really changed. And so, you know, we talk about NVIDIA a lot at our place. You know, NVIDIA, we said, has a chance to be the biggest company in the world last year because of this AI revolution, and it fell 60%. You know, that was wrong because interest rates went up. It's now up 60% this year. So nothing really changed in the NVIDIA story, just the valuation went from high to low, and now it's back to high. So from our point of view, valuations are low, and the structural changes are the same. So it's a better opportunity now than it was a year ago because the world isn't stopped changing.
And what are the two key sectors that are likely to benefit from this AI or data arms race?
Yeah, so from our point of view, we think the most obvious arms winners are semiconductor companies. Semiconductors are essentially, you know, as you go into generative AI, to give you an idea, a ChatGPT query will cost you roughly 10 times what a search query will cost. The more you use this stuff, the more compute power you're going to need. The more compute power you need, the more semiconductors you need. Everybody now realizes they need to have these products. They want these products. They want to collect as much data as they can and get these generative outcomes. And so the big winners will be semiconductor companies. I mentioned NVIDIA, but you could also look at the foundry companies like TSMC or ASML in lithography. The other big area is probably going to be software. If you think about it, Microsoft incorporates into a thing called Copilot. It will listen to your Teams meeting. It'll summarize your team meeting. It'll summarize an email to do the follow-ups from your team meeting, and it'll help you become more productive. And I can see a world where I'd pay an extra $10 a month for Teams if it could do that. And so software companies are probably the other big winners.
Are there any sectors you're wary of at the moment?
Yeah, so it's quite funny. The other sectors you've got to be wary of, outside of obviously like sort of big stuff like recruitment, etc. Do we need as many knowledge workers when we have AI? And what can be disintermediated. The other issue would again be software, I suspect. So in software, we see it binary. If you think about it, AI, whoever has the most data wins in AI because it's all first party data that's used to train these models. Microsoft clearly has a huge advantage here. But think about how would that compare against, say a smaller software company that can't do this. You're less likely to have 20 licenses of 20 software companies. You're more likely to go to say 3 or 4 and use the AI that they're bringing into it to help drive your outcomes.
I'm sure all your holdings are your favourite. Is there one particularly compelling idea at the moment?
Look, from our point of view, we've long since liked NVIDIA, and I've said it for a long time, and they looked really smart and I've looked really stupid. From our point of view, this is very much in the own it, don't trade it category. You should just own NVIDIA. It's the one way to win from this. It's incredibly expensive today, so maybe you want to think about how you buy it, but they should be the big winner on the next decade, and that would be our favourite.
I know every holding in the portfolio is probably a favourite, but is there one particularly compelling idea in the portfolio?
Yeah, so from our point of view, it's probably NVIDIA. We've talked about this company for a long time. It's made us look really smart. It's made us look really stupid. From our point of view, this one's in the own it, don't trade it category. We think over the next 10 years, NVIDIA clearly sits as I suppose the simple way to think about it is the Intel and Microsoft together of the AI world. And so if you think about the PC world was Intel made the PCs and Microsoft made the software. We're now in AI, NVIDIA makes the semiconductors and NVIDIA makes the software. So if you want to do something in AI, you have to do it with NVIDIA. And so from our point of view, that's the one we like over the longest time horizon. And that's the one, that's probably our favourite that we'll talk about today.